Hey everybody, how are you? Let's talk about movies. Logan is the newest of what is now a very long line of X-Men movies, which has spanned like 17 years, and I think that might make it the longest running comic book series ever. I guess it depends on if you consider First Class a reboot, which is hard to say since the X-Men franchise has done some really wacky, crazy gymnastics with their timeline and continuity, but that's whatever, it doesn't really matter. This is Hugh Jackman's final Wolverine movie, and it's great. So here's what you might need to know going in. It's the future, and Logan and Professor Xavier are the last of the X-Men. They're not really in good shape either. Logan's healing factor isn't working as well as it used to, and he looks way more beat up than usual. He still heals up, but it takes a lot longer, whereas in the earlier parts of the franchise, it was almost instantaneous. Xavier's not really doing great either. He's been suffering from seizures, which is really extra bad because he's telepathic, and the two of them are essentially hiding out in Mexico, away from civilization, because an Xavier telepathic seizure might end up killing like lots and lots of people. It's certainly not a glamorous life, and it becomes even more complicated when a woman approaches Logan and asks him to escort her and this other young girl to Canada. This woman and this girl have come from some lab in Mexico where they're doing like a lot of sketchy stuff with kids and mutants, and they have a posse hot on their trail. So with the promise of a big payday, which they can use to leave civilization behind, Logan and Xavier begin their trip from Mexico to Canada, trying to stay one step ahead of the host of heavily armed government agent type things who are trying to get the girl from the lab. Now, Logan is different from every other X-Men movie in several ways, but probably my favorite distinction is that Logan is essentially a Western. It's like a really cool, really gritty throwback to the Clint Eastwood era, or even something like Stagecoach, where Logan is like a gunslinger, it's rough around the edges, but he can get the job done, and Xavier's like the sidekick that does his best to keep Logan grounded. And even though there are plenty of sci-fi moments like machinery that runs itself and cybernetic implants, the movie follows most of the Western tropes that a Western fan has come to expect. This movie is also different in tone and look. From the very first frame, everything is dirty. It looks like this movie took a cue from like The Walking Dead from its aesthetic. There's dirt and dried blood on just about everything. It pays off, I think, in that it creates a tone for the movie that is to be taken seriously from start to finish. This is not the fun summer blockbuster. It's a serious movie about serious characters, which I think puts it in this rare superhero category that is very similar to like the Dark Knight trilogy. Okay, let's talk about acting, because in this movie, it's a step above your average comic book movie. Jackman is always good as Wolverine, but this grizzled, bitter version is different than what we've seen before, and Jackman grounds it perfectly. It still has some of the Wolverine snark that we'd come to expect, but it's more gruff, like he's seen some stuff and it's finally caught up with him. But Jackman's performance is ultimately enhanced by Patrick Stewart's. Like when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was thrilled and thought like, Old Man Wolverine and Old Man Xavier? I'm in. This movie does not disappoint. I could watch these two actors pretty much all day. Like Xavier is more beat down in the movie too. He's losing control of his telepathy with his seizures, and he worries about the pain he can cause people. And while Stewart conveys the heartbreak of lost ideals for mutants and humans, he still plays an Xavier that's still affable and able to see the good in people. So whereas Logan is just like done with the world and everything in it, Xavier's still the good force trying to call him back to be a better person. The moments between these two are amazing, but they are still not what you'd expect. Logan is rated R, and they remind you of that pretty much every minute of the movie. I mean, the very first word is like this groaned out F-bomb from Logan. And Xavier's not holding back either, which is one of the few criticisms I have for Logan. For a lot of the swearing bits, I didn't really mind, but with Xavier, it was such a huge departure from what we've seen before with that character. Like, I know there's a backstory to explain how he became this way, but it's still just jarring for most of his swear time. I actually find myself thinking like, oh, that's just Patrick Stewart swearing, instead of thinking like, oh, that's Xavier swearing. So the F-bombs fly a little too frequently for my taste, but some of them are used perfectly, and it actually adds a lot of humor between the Logan-Xavier dynamic. That one's Logan, that one's Xavier. This is a bloody movie, everyone, like seriously. I like it, but there's still something about blade violence compared to like comic book violence and even gun violence. Like when my wife asked me about the movie, the only thing I could say was, it was really good, and I don't think you're gonna like it. Logan has some funny moments, and the dynamic between Logan and Xavier is great. And the girl, played by Daphne Keane, is also like really good. But when Logan is pushed into bad situation, heads are gonna roll. Quite literally. Like people are getting stabbed and slashed all over the place. I have like a brother who enjoys Edward Scissorhands, but he can't even stand it when like Johnny Depp is like trying to help that one kid and he accidentally like cuts up his face and whatever. The idea of blades, just he can't deal with it. So this movie it'll be impossible basically for him to sit through. But for those of you who don't mind the blood and the violence, you're good. For those of you who outright love intense action sequences, you're in for a treat with the visceral brutality that's offered up here. Because like a lot of Westerns, Logan certainly plays into the myth of redemptive violence. So with that disclaimer, go ahead and check out Logan. If you love the X-Men movies, if you love Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, and want to see their life in which they bicker, argue, and swear at each other, or if you love intense action and high stakes, this movie's really great. Super bloody, super intense, but really good. Like, I've kind of kept thinking about it over and over again. It reminds me of Unforgiven. Not quite the same caliber as Unforgiven, but the basic feel of it seems very much like Unforgiven. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Let me know if there's certain movies you want me to talk about. Like, let me know, and I'll see if I can go check them out for you. Especially if I don't need a babysitter. That'd be great. I mean, maybe I should just start doing Netflix stuff. Let me know if you want me to start doing Netflix stuff. That would be fun, too. Give me more reason to watch things. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Check out some of my other stuff over here. I'm going to say it's here, 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 and that's where I'm going to talk about English stuff, right over there. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.